Hi, welcome back to our 55-day journey of Christ consciousness energies. We are on day 46. Exciting. We're coming near to the end of this 55-day journey together. And remember that this is about the energies that are within you. How might you cultivate them through your life experiences, self-awareness, reflection, this beautiful heart opening that so many of us are going through. Granted, it doesn't feel beautiful all the time, right? It can be challenging, a bit bumpy sometimes to integrate and balance and harmonize our emotional and mental bodies and integrate light. So those of you newly to this channel, this is inspired by the Christ Consciousness Self Mastery deck created by Amanda Ellis and illustrated by Jane Delaford Taylor. And we've just been going on this journey together, pulling one card from the deck. It's a 55 card deck. And we pull one card at a time and do a reading on it, see what comes through, any teachings, as well as the channeling from the book. Sometimes I pull other cards to assist, other times I don't. It's all perfect. It's all, ooh, this card just shot out. This is the non-judgment card. Hold on, make sure I read that correctly. Yeah, non-judgment, reflection, and projection. Wow, what a beautiful card to have pop out today for this journey. Now, remember, you can come back to this reading at any time, any of the videos at any time, so long as they're up on the YouTube channel. And I plan on keeping them up as long as I have this channel. So again, and remember, every time you revisit it, you may get a new perspective from the reading. And because you were different each time you reread something or come to something again, right? It's like a book. Something new stands out, even if you read it 10 times, right? Something different may stand out to you as you grow, right? No different than you have other experiences, and it could be the same experiences, but you handle it so much differently because you grew, you learned from the past, and you made different choices, right? That too assists you in becoming non-judgmental, right? The more experiences you open yourself up to in life can also foster your ability to have more compassion, more forgiveness, more reflection, self-reflection, and less projection, really, of others, right? Because look at this person in the background, and it's so interesting because it looks like they're covered, right? They're covered like this down, but then there's some appears to be rocks behind them. But as I look at this, it also looks like another body laying down on their side looking away, as if, if someone was laying in bed and the other person was not. I could be mistaken in that, but that's what it looks like to me, right? So you have this, what appears to be a woman hunched over, holding her head, kind of, you know, curled inward, protective. That's a very protective, like skies falling kind of energy, right? Well, if this is a body, it could just be rocks, okay? But for me, I'm seeing another body facing the other way, like if they're laying on their side. And because that too can be something. Sometimes we turn away, right? When we're in judgment of another person, we turn away, right? We can sit there and point fingers and cast stones at other people, and we also can turn our backs away from them. They also can turn our backs away from us. And sometimes there's people that even join the crowd of judgment, even though at the core of them, they know it's wrong, but they didn't lack the courage to stand up for what was right. because they didn't want to be persecuted in addition to. They didn't want to fall into that judgment as well. Then the eyes would they would become the target, right? So there's these fiery balls of light that looks like it's coming in, right? When we're judging others, we're also judging something. There's something deep within us that we're just like being judged in ourselves, right? Maybe there was, again, we're coming back to our youth a little bit here. Like we said in the past card we just had on day 45. And the Earth School and Wisdom Bringer, right? There was a mention in that day of perhaps the past living within you, that current is coming through and you cast judgment out on someone else, but it's hitting something within you, your programming of your youth is sometimes is the driver's seat, and we don't realize this on a subconscious level. That's what's coming out, right? Then the judgment on others can potentially come out, and the projection, right? The projection, but sometimes it's also reflecting back at us. If life is a mirror to us, if our experiences are also mirrors to what we need to see within ourselves. And me as a life coach and guide, I'm always, that's part of the work, or I reflect back to clients what they say, the words they use, and we bring it back to the self. What does, now that remembering that everything we do here, we're going to bring it back to the self. What is that saying, telling you about yourself? And that is a big question to look at. And even as I'm saying this, I'm noticing my reflection in my window in front of me that's partially closed with the blinds. As where are you also in this, as the person casting out judgment, and also the one that is being hit by judgment and projection, being basically kind of beaten down by it, right? We can also judge other scenarios that we had nothing to do with and have no really true knowledge about it, or one-sided knowledge, because someone is shaping this narrative. Whether right or wrong, I don't know, but it can impact other people. It could cause others to judge us wrongfully because they don't know the full story, because then they're projecting out other things. Maybe that story also triggered something within them, right? Judgment. So we see there's also this heart image that's kind of starting here, right? And all that orange. Yeah, it's just I just feeling like this taking cover, right? This taking cover, like, oh, I'm taking cover. And I watched this the other day when someone felt judged by his choices. But really, I was watching someone getting overly involved with the person's choice. And then she too wouldn't let her own opinion and experience go. So neither one were in a place where they could really resonate and hear each other. But he got really like closed off and defensive, and she just kept going. And where he basically did this movement but it was physically like, I'm done with this conversation and leaving, right? Because he shut down, right? He shut down because on some level, he was feeling judged. He didn't recognize that at the time or couldn't speak to it, but I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, that's hitting some things, and witnessing the other person. I was like, huh, very interesting, right? So, but also pay attention to when you are feeling judged, even if someone's just sharing their experience. that may be so far from the truth of what's really happening, and it may be hitting something within you that's deeper beneath your own surface, that gets in the way of really feeling and seeing what's really occurring, right? Because sometimes when people are standing their boundaries, others, I know when I remember standing my boundaries with someone, and right away they went into judgment. They went into, oh, I'm feeling judged, right? And so how might you recognize that you're not in judgment at all? You're not being judged at all, because this card is about non-judgment. So to be in non-judgment, we must understand what judgment is as well, right? And what would non-judgment be? And because we're always judging things, right? So the ability to have judgment, discernment, even physically, like you're constantly judging, like, oh, how the height of a step, how high is that step to step onto physically, right? Judging a situation or scenario to have behavior, like, when to engage in a conversation, when not to, when to cross the street. These are all things where we're using judgment, we're using discernment, all the time. So how might we also be in non-judgment, right? In reflection and projection, right? For me, I go into a self-reflection place, but it took me a while to get to where I am today with it. Did I always have that ability looking back in my life? Yes. Did I always use it wisely? No. Do I use it more consistently now? Absolutely. Let's go into the definition of judgment, right? Because a few cards back, I shared how I was just getting more inquisitive and reminded to the etymology of words. And let's really, because so often we can use a common definition, but it's not necessarily what the word truly means. But through culture, through misuse, it becomes a common definition, even though it's not truly what the word stems from. So let's see what judgment. To know judgment, we also need to know, that helps us know what non-judgment is, right? Judgment, action of trying at law, capacity for making decisions, right? Which I was saying, how do I cross the street? Maybe stepping up on a steps, right? Discernment, from Old French judgment, legal judgment, diagnosis, the last judgment. It comes from judgier, Jugier, to judge. And then it says see judge. So let's go down and we'll see judge. Examine, appraise, make a diagnosis. To form an opinion about, inflict penalty upon, punish, to try someone, like a trial, right? Pronounce a sentence. Make a decision, decide, think, suppose. That's from an Anglo-French, juger. Old French, jugier, to judge. Okay, we got that before. Pass an opinion on, right? In the Latin, it's iudicare. I'm not certain how to pronounce that. To judge, to examine officially, right? Examine officially. Form an opinion upon pronounced judgment. So we see where it's coming into the same type of thing, to judge. And also, when the compound of it, the IUS in Latin, is right law. And the root, just, is an adjective, root of dicere, D-I-C-E-R-E, to say. Right? So this is very much can be tied into also our root, our throat chakra, right? How are we using our language? Right? That last day we had, there's gossip came in. How are we using our voice? Right? Are we getting the full story, right? In this definition or aspect of the definition, judge as a verb, to examine officially and then form an opinion, right? So many times we don't examine things officially of others. We're quick to judge it without examination. What if you inquired first, gained more information before you cast the judgment, before you cast the opinion? That can assist you in going into non-judgment if you're curious with someone. Listen to their experience. It doesn't identify them solely. But if you be curious to their experience and just listen, right, without judgment, meaning without forming an opinion about it, just listen. To become that neutral observer also of yourself, right? I know someone not that long ago who was speaking about certain things, and guilt comes in when she doesn't do certain stuff, and then she feels guilty, judging herself, feeling guilty, adding more onto her than she doesn't even need to, right? Projecting that energy out. Because not only do you project on yourself, you project it energetically out to others, right? You might assume others are being, I don't know, more productive than you are, farther along their spiritual path than you. You're comparing, and then you're also causing judgment on yourself that why aren't you there yet? Be okay exactly where you are, right? And in this picture, we also see an angel, right? Angel wings. But it also looks like the arm is holding someone else back, right? Holding someone else back. Oh, yeah, the stones. Remember, like casting stones at others, and they're covering and cowering, they're pointing fingers. That person here, as I took a closer look, has stones in his hands. And then you have the angel holding the arm, and the stone drops, calming the situation, right? Stopping the judgment. Right. So let's go ahead and go to the card, because this is the first time I've come across this card too. Most of the deck, as I've said before, we're all taking this journey together. It's card number 16 for those of you that wish to look up the numerology. You're welcome to do so on your own. You know, because there's also the reflection and projection, right? You know, and when you're judging others, you have to look yourself out in the mirror. And some people will tell themselves all day long that they're okay with that judgment. They're okay with handing down, casting stones, speaking poorly about others, judging someone else's choices when they have no idea what that person is walking through day in and day out. None. most of the time they're just suspecting. Oftentimes they're projecting and don't even realize they're projecting when we're in such harsh judgment, I'll say, of another person. But let's go ahead and read the card, and perhaps that will give us some more guidance here through the channeling that Amanda has written out for all of us to connect with, reflect upon, right? Because it's a tough one, judgment, right? That's one of the things I'm oftentimes violet flaming as I'm thinking, and I'll have these thoughts come through, and I'm like, okay, help me release this judgment. Help me bring it calm and light to the things within myself. Okay, so here's what the channeling and message has to say of this card of non-judgment, reflection, and projection. Non-judgment, reflection, and projection, because we want to get to that place of non-judgment, which I would define more as the negative polarity of judgment, because we do need to be able to have judgment, right? But we're moving it into a place that is in a positive polarity or a neutral place too. Okay. You're reminded how quick our human response is to judge others, and how fast we can also be judged, not by God, but our fellow brothers and sisters. And I'm going to pause right here for a second, because it reminds me of a time. Now, in my background, I used to work in law enforcement, non-sworn position. So I supported officers, a sworn position. And at the time I was in various roles, right? And one of those roles within the records division, we had to process paperwork for those that came in as sex registrants. Now, and we had to handle other type, we were always the last eyes on every report and dealing with the public. And so, you know, most often people are coming in and for different reasons, they're already under stress, right? So anyhow, we're processing the paperwork. Some people have to register yearly, others monthly, depending on their status, the level of their registration, the requirement to register per California state law. Your state may be different. Now, I understand this example may be hard for some of you, but I feel it's one that can also be very tangible in the judgment arena. And I'd just like to offer to, my heart goes out to any of you that have are touched by that brief topic of being sexually assaulted or harmed in some way, or know someone, or even are some people that are offenders and are healing from their own choices in life and hopefully making better ones that don't cause harm to themselves and others anymore, because there's something there, right? So the ability to hold compassion and no longer perpetuate the judgment of others. And I'm not sitting here saying condoning behavior by any means that harms another person. I'm using this example because there would be times when working with specific people, they would cast more and more and more judgment on that person coming in. And as challenging as that could be for some people, I know for myself, I got to a place where I didn't want to lose compassion for other human beings, no matter what they've done in life. Okay, no matter what they've done in life, because that is another human being that is also suffering in some way to do harm to other people. So I was just more respectful, because they too had wives, husbands, children that they'd go home to. They also had work and lives, right? Where some people would choose, they're like, they can sit and wait, and they'd cast more judgment, cause more pain, cause more discord, right? But it was also striking something within themselves, their own experience, because they were harmed by another person, which I can only hold space for, and I can only imagine what that experience might be for someone. Now, in my background, I also was an advocate for victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, right? And worked in a shelter for a while for women that were fleeing their situations, a 30-day shelter. So why do I say this? Because one, you never know what your experiences in life support you later. It always prepares you for something. But the ability to not hold any party in additional judgment, let the natural course take care of it, right? You have the human course, which would, in these examples, would be go through the criminal justice system, right? And also the social services system, different things that support people. That process will happen, right? But within me, and then the heart that I hold, and the light of God that runs through me, to add more judgment to another human being causes more harm to them and to myself. And then for me, it was important to no longer perpetuate the suffering of others and myself. So I would remind myself that person too is suffering. And how might, in this little instance that seems so small, how I might make it just a little bit more neutral. Meaning still treating that person with respect, still meeting the needs of why they came in, right? Not purposely forcing them to repeat over and over and over again what they did in their life, why they're here to register. It's all written down on their paperwork. Many are embarrassed to even write it down because of the guilt, right? And some things would have to ask them to fill it out, okay? It takes something deep within your own evolution to be able to go into a place of forgiveness, compassion, and neutrality for such acts. And it's understandable if for some of you right now in your own life can't get there. It's perfectly understandable. And perhaps you are there in non-judgment in other ways, in other things in your life. Perfectly fine. It also reminds me of a story of a woman. I wish I could remember her name, but she shared her story, and it was probably all like on NPR or something, and I was listening to these human stories, right? Where something happened where her son's life was taken. And she said, instead of holding anger, she prayed over and over and over and over and over again that the person who took her son's life would change and become a different person. Somehow, through events, that person who took her son's life lived with her, and she continued to just show him compassion and cook and do all these things until he was a changed person, because somehow he reached out to her because he somehow wanted to make amends of the wrongdoing he had. So she shared her story, and I'm paraphrasing it because I can't remember verbatim, and I don't know how many years he lived with her. But she started crying, and she said, yeah, I watched that man change, and he became someone different. He was no longer the same person he was the years prior when he took her son's life. So out of her compassion and prayer and non-judgment, it brought healing and forgiveness to both parties and raised them both. Now that's a really extreme story to share, right? Because so it takes so much faith and will and trust in God to be able to hold such a place, right? So I give you that as a big contrast to where any of you can be and become within yourself. And since this is a Christ consciousness self mastery deck, I would also invite you to really, really connect again. And like those t-shirts would say, what would Jesus do? If you don't know what to do, you call on the ascended master beings of light, in this case, Christ consciousness energy. Perhaps it's Jesus for you. Perhaps it's another ascended master that holds these qualities. And you ask for guidance when you ask for guidance. Allow it to show you the way, deepen your faith, deepen your trust. So let me return to the message here in this channeling. And again, my heart goes out to those of you that may have gotten kind of triggered by some of the stories I shared. But sometimes the contrast can help us really get over our own challenges. And again, if some of these things, judgment I find is one of the hardest things because it happens so often throughout the day. Why did that person cut me off, and casting judgment out and this and that, when you can easily just go, okay, I'm going to just ease off my pedal, let them in, because then they don't have to cut you off, or just they're in a hurry. It's just, how might I just let them be in a hurry that doesn't impact me, and then I just wish them well and a safe journey wherever they're getting to, because you also don't know what's happening inside of them. What if there's something urgent? Probably most of the time there isn't, but what if there is? We don't know. We just don't know, right? So I'll start again from the beginning. You are reminded how quick our human response is to judge others, and how fast we can also be judged, not by God, but by our fellow brothers and sisters. So often this is done from a moment of rashness and haste, ill thought out words, intentions, and actions that cause unnecessary pain and suffering, and that we often live to regret. It can be amplified by the pull of a crowd or a groundswell of popular opinion online that creates a movement to attack and seek revenge rather than to listen and create a space of healing. I love that the opinions online, right? Social media, huge playing ground for judgment, right? However, when we judge another, we fail to see the times we have acted without thought for someone, when we have done wrong or had malice, selfishness, or anger within our heart. To be human is to err, E-R-R, and no person alive has not done something misguided, unwise, or unkind. I don't know if that was meant to be error or just E-R-R, perhaps it means the same thing. Our misdeeds may be large or minor, but all of us have a weight we carry that represents the time we did not hold true to Christ's teaching of love and non-judgment. We can blame, criticize, or attack one another for something we have done or via an alternative life path might have done. We also project onto others what we do not wish to acknowledge within ourselves. Whatever is highlighted, Jesus never demonstrated condemning another. He always offered the olive branch an opportunity for healing. In his own words, those without wrongdoing cast the first stone, for he knew it was not for us to judge, and that hate leads to more hate. War leads to more war, and judgment leads to more division. Practicing non-judgment is one of the hardest parts of Christ consciousness, but also one of the most rewarding to try to master. It is okay not to succeed, as you will, but we all learn from times we fail, and the lesson is to strive to do better next time. Okay, so if this is a hard one for you, don't worry. You'll do better next time because it's in your awareness. You self-reflect, and then you work on it. It's a practice. Judgment and condemnation lead to a vicious cycle of increasing isolation and separation. Our human instinct to pick up the stone is there from earliest imprinted times, but so too is the template of more Eden-like energy that saw all in God's garden as good. In truth, within everything is a spark of goodness and light. Non-judgment seeks to remind you to focus on that rather than the darkness. So again, we're remembering to focus on the light. You focus on the light within another. And by showing people compassion, no longer condemning them, that little spark of light, you never know, that just might fan the light within them just a little bit more. Maybe they just needed that act of kindness, right? That helps someone's transformation. That what lives within everyone is holy and so far more than the sum of anything done in any one life, and that your Father in heaven loves you. That we are all part of a greater consciousness, and the angel's wings on this card shows the time of higher power, including your own higher self, steps in to try to thwart the lower desires that want, e.g., vengeance, retribution, or to take out inner unhealed anger on another. Reflect on what you judge. It may be behaviors in others. It does not have to be some big, terrible deed. It could be intolerance, greed, egotism, selfishness, laziness, narrow-mindedness, or any other human trait. What we dislike in another is often what is reflected to some degree within us. Once identified, do not judge yourself. Instead, look at the why the aspect is there. Where are their roots? And importantly, are you ready to let them go? Seeing your human frailties and loving them back to harmony via softness and compassion is suggested. I'm going to reread that. Where are their roots? And importantly, are you ready to let them go? Seeing your human frailties and loving them back to harmony via softness and compassion is suggested. No battles of war, but the gentle embrace of non-judgment and love is far more fruitful now. Far more fruitful now. And that's really important to remember. The ability to remember the direction that you want to go. What do you want to build for your life and for others? And how might you be the example of that as you lead and transform your life, right? Because self-mastery, your alchemy, you're making choices to alchemize and align yourself with your I am presence and Christ consciousness energies. You're evolving. So show yourself the grace and compassion, and perhaps you'll recognize where the ability of non-judgment begins with you, begins with the ability to no longer judge yourself for things. And sometimes it also comes with life experience, right? Sometimes we experience things, then all of a sudden we no longer have judgment for someone once we've experienced something similar. But what if we didn't have to experience something similar? What if you just worked on exercising that ability to allow something else to take its place when you catch yourself in judgment, right? Maybe do some ohms, as a friend of mine said, just ohm it. Just ohm it. connect with your higher guidance. And when you recognize, right, the ability of to recognize when you're in it, and then to allow something else to take its place. You can do the Hawaiian prayer as well. And you can do it internally in your mind and send love to yourself and to the other and to the situation you are judging. You can bring in the violet flame to transmute, transfigure, bring to light, set it free within yourself as well and others. There's so many tools you could bring in here, right? Maybe step further into other spiritual practices that you do. And forgiveness. And just go, thank you, God. I can practice this again until it softens and is less frequent, until it's just no longer there. Allow it to melt away like butter. Just melts away. Just melts away right off you. I'm Jean Lobito. Be sure to like and share this video. And until I see you on day 47, much love to all of you.